Today it's so easy to feel overwhelmed, become depressed, and then turn to something to numb out and medicate to deal with life. Welcome to our new reality. I thought I was doing everything right. I married young, had a supportive wife, created a good business, and we had 3 kids by the time I was 30. I was living the American dream, complete with the white picket fence and the dog. Fast forward many years, and then I turned 50. I always figured by now I'd be rich, my kids would be grown, and my wife and I would be on our way to retirement. But that isn't what happened. I went bankrupt. We went through a divorce, and our oldest son was addicted to opiates. I was depressed and I had felt like I'd failed. So I decided to get away with my best friend Scott, who just so happens to be my brother, and go on a scuba diving trip. It was an opportunity to unwind and think. Now on this trip I met this guy named Jim, and he takes people who are wheelchair users scuba diving. It's called adaptive diving. He told me it was life-changing for them because when they get under the water they have this astronaut moment and they feel this sense of freedom and independence. I thought that was pretty cool. He asked me what I did, and I told him I was a filmmaker. And he said he believed that there are no coincidences in life, and maybe we could do a project together. As he handed me his business card, I politely took it, and I wished him well, and I was headed on my way. But let me tell you, a few weeks later, I was depressed again. I wasn't passionate about the specific job I was doing, and I kept thinking about this guy Jim and his organization. And I thought, I need a life-changing experience right now. I had read that in order to make shift happen in your life, you need to stop focusing on your problems and be of service to someone else. So I called him and I said, hey, let's make a documentary about adaptive divers. He told me that they were taking a week-long trip to Cozumel in December, and he invited me to join them. I called my brother and he agreed to come along and help me film. This was going to be an epic trip. I dove into researching Jim and the people whose lives he changed. I was looking for the storyline. You know, that universal thread that holds us all together. Then life did what life does. It gave me a challenge to overcome. 7 days before the trip, my 27-year-old son died of a drug overdose. I was crushed. After some conversation, my family and I decided that I should still go, and we'd have the funeral after I got back. So I went on this trip to be of service and to tell a story. And I invite you to join me and see what happens, and watch as I try to heal my heart and go on my soul's journey. My name is David Marsh. A week after he passed, I found myself at the airport in a daze. There was no way I'd be able to tell anyone. It was just too painful. I was determined to put my sorrow on the back burner and be a professional. Here's me practicing being Mr. Positive. Getting ready to go to Cozumel to shoot this documentary. Super excited. Just got through security, heading to the gate. Can't wait. It's going to be awesome. We were going to Cozumel. It's about 10 miles off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, surrounded by warm Caribbean water. It's known for its world-renowned scuba diving. We were staying at a beautiful resort, diving with a 5-star dive shop, and we were planning on having an incredible week of scuba diving. Adaptive diving is where individuals of all abilities overcome challenges that perhaps they were born with or maybe acquired through a traumatic injury. These people are shown how to use their abilities to scuba dive, to feel weightless, to explore the world under the surface. And we were there to film it.
I finally get to meet Peggy.
There you go. You must be David.
I am so glad you're here.
This adventure was the idea of Jim Elliott, the founder of Diveheart.
Since 2001, we've been helping children, veterans, and others of all abilities build confidence, independence, and self-esteem through scuba diving, through actually taking them underwater and giving them the freedom of zero gravity. What we do is really not about, it's not about scuba diving. It's about helping the individual, creating a paradigm shift in their life. Now it's not Johnny in a wheelchair, it's Johnny the scuba diver. Now he doesn't self-identify as somebody with a disability, he self-identifies as a diver. And that means a lot. I mean, the cool factor in this is off the charts. And what we do then is we point them towards something that will excite them and get them involved and make them feel purposeful. Robert, for example, was a young man who, at 10, bullies took him and turned him upside down and drove his head into the concrete and gave him a C5 spinal cord injury. And during a dive, I had them put him on a nice sandy flat in about 30 feet of water. And I said, Robert, I want you to just use your breath to control your up and down movement. And I had the current behind him. He looked like he was going to fall sometimes, but he recovered with his breathing. And every time he reached up and he cleared his mask, he said, Jim, I was smiling so much, my mask was leaking.
This trip was designed to build confidence by giving working experience to individuals that want to help people with disabilities. Divers and dive instructors from all over the place were here this week to undergo total immersion adaptive dive training. That means that they might have breakfast with someone who has a cognitive challenge and lunch with someone who has a spinal cord injury, and then end the day with the entire group talking and laughing in the hot tub. By the end of the week, they've been diving and socializing with each other, learning new information, overcoming challenges together, and growing as people. This was the start of day one, and it was time to meet each other.
Well, welcome. It's good to be back in Cozumel, right? 2019 was our last Cozumel trip. So very excited about that. So what I'd like to do first is really just kind of go around the room and see who's in the room, find out who the instructors are, find out who hasn't been in the water for a while, like Tina was just asking. And I think we're going to start with Nick.
Hola, hi, señor, señoritas. I'm speaking Spanish a little bit. Also, Nicholas Johnson.
We went around the circle and each person told a little bit about themselves. There were 40 people who all had something to say. I kept thinking, who are they? What are they here for? What's their story? There were various levels of challenges here. There were wheelchair users such as Peggy, Linda, and Chris dealing with spinal cord injuries, Tracy going through ALS, and Barb a degenerative condition. Patricia had a debilitating stroke, Kyle a traumatic brain injury, and Nick is on the autism spectrum. I listened intently because I wanted to share their stories. There were also lots of other people who were here for training to become adaptive dive buddies, and even some to become instructors for adaptive diving. As I listened, I could feel the compassion, empathy, and love. I could feel it, and it was palpable. It felt like there was something really special here. In fact, for some reason, it felt like I was here for a bigger purpose than what I originally thought. And so here I was, with my brother, filming these people, and it was clear that we were all in this together. As the meeting ended, we all were looking forward to getting in the water and diving.
Each individual with a disability we refer to as an adaptive diver. They come in with different levels of challenges. Some are physical, some are cognitive, and they actually this week are going to be our crash test dummies, and they need to be certified before they come. We have a hierarchy of training. We begin with an adaptive buddy. That's an open water diver that needs to have at least 20 dives. And that is a certification that we provide to that individual, and it allows them to be part of an adaptive dive team. Now, a level of certification that we created is an advanced adaptive dive buddy. And that basically is at least a rescue diver who is current in their CPR certification, or a dive master, an individual that is very, very good in the water, but maybe doesn't want to become an instructor, but they're competent enough to head a dive team that requires an advanced adaptive dive buddy. Then we get into the instructor certification. So the Adaptive Scuba Instructor, ASI, is another level that we have. And that instructor, once they achieve that certification, has the ability to train adaptive dive buddies and advanced adaptive dive buddies and adaptive divers.
I started volunteering with Diveheart. It was a local organization. We went to a quarry and everyone was saying, well, why aren't you in the water? And I kind of laughed and I said, oh no, I don't dive. And they say, why not? And I said, well, I'm not certified. I'm not a scuba diver. And they looked at me and they said, why not? And I said, well, that's petrifying to me. That's not something really I wanted to do, but being around this group was really inspiring, and I thought, maybe I can do that. So I committed to getting certified as an open water diver. Came here 3 years ago and did the open water portion of that, so then I could work in a larger capacity with the group. Here today, I'm feeling anxious again. People were encouraging me to, well, now you're certified, why don't you become an adaptive buddy? And I laughed again and I said, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. And they looked at me and said, why not? And I said, that's petrifying. You know, we're all here together and we all have our challenges. So my challenge is my personal anxiety. It's kind of ironic, I work in life and death situations every day. I work in surgery, I'm in an operating room. When I'm here in the adaptive buddy training, I'm trying to figure out my own things, the intricacies, the little things that it feels like everyone around me already knows. It's second nature to them. I'm trying to think about how am I going to be responsible for someone else when I'm trying to keep myself from drowning. I have reassurance from very good people. I trust them, and they say I can do it, so I'm going to give it my all.
Trust. Trust is important in diving. You have to trust your gear, your training, your dive buddy, yourself. Without trust, you can get paralyzed by fear and then miss the adventure. Now that seems to be a theme that keeps coming up for me in my own life, learning to trust that the universe is working for me throughout this human journey. I watched and I was inspired as the adaptive divers put their trust in their buddies.
We have to have an order in which we board the boat. Wheelchairs on first and wheelchairs off last. Now we may use the individual's wheelchair or we may transfer them into a step chair that we have. The step chair is awesome because it has a lot of grab points. It's the same kind of chair that firefighters use when they bring individuals downstairs. Then we have a system when we get to the boat and we load the adaptive diver. These are not accessible boats, right? You can't roll right onto the deck. So we have to have a strategy where we have two individuals grabbing the back top of the chair, two individuals kind of between the pier and the boat, and two individuals on the deck. Then what we have to do is have someone take them to an object or a column and strap that wheelchair in solidly so that if there are waves, that wheelchair doesn't fall over. Then the divers and the buddies can get on the boat and we can go do our diving.
My entire body was cared after. Somebody had an eye on my feet. Somebody had an eye on my cushion under my booty. They took special care to move me slowly, safely, and carefully to keep me safe, and such that there was no chance I could get hurt or fall in the water.
It was easy. I like how they all join in to help me get over, and I didn't have to sit in the chair. So it's nice to actually walk the boat.
I was a little scared because the boat's rocking a lot more than I'm used to, and it's all about trusting. And I guess I trust them all. It's just kind of weird, you know? So it was a little scary, but then I was fine.
There it was again. Trust. Maybe trust is what unlocks the ability to really feel alive. We can try and mitigate the risk as much as possible, but without trust, we stay in fear, and fear keeps us from truly living. I see how adaptive divers are willing to put their lives in the hands of others, both on land and under the water, and it's all about trust. In my personal life, I left my marriage, and we're creating a new space in life for self-discovery and new experiences. It was scary leaving that comfort. And now I'm feeling the loss of our son, and it's sad knowing that he won't be around anymore. But maybe that's what this journey through life is all about. Leaving fear, overcoming adversity, and learning to trust. What's that old saying? Let go and let God? Well, I see how these adaptive divers must learn to trust, and that inspires me to look deep within, and maybe I can do the same.
The next 5 days, we do 2-tank morning boat dives, and we rotate positions. So we have forward positions and rearward positions, because an individual with a disability might have 3 people in their team. So it might have an advanced buddy, an adaptive buddy that are trained, and then they might have a support diver just in the event of an emergency. The training also takes them out of their comfort level. I mean, when you take a really good diver and you take their fins away and you tie their legs together and you make them a paraplegic or a quadriplegic and someone else has to equalize them, that's out of your comfort zone. And some people handle it better than others. So during the course of the week, we may have some personalities that kind of, you know, when you're not comfortable, sometimes you might get a little irritable or you might react in a way that you wouldn't react if you're calm and together. So it's going to be exciting, but at the end of the day, we tell people on day one, it's all about adapting.
Getting out of your comfort zone. Isn't that what growth is all about? Whether it's expanding your internal belief system, or evolving a relationship to allow personal development, or finding out how to navigate life when a loved one has passed. It's all about learning to trust that you are on the right path and you are exactly where you should be. It was already late into the afternoon, but we were all excited for the first dive of the week. I was filming on one boat and Scott was filming on the other. Before we got into the water, everyone would do their dive briefings. Now let me introduce to you the adaptive divers.
After a bicycle accident, 35 or 45 seconds later, in the blink of an eye, I became a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the armpits down. So essentially 80% of my body is just dead weight, paralyzed. About 1 in 1,000 people get the opportunity to dive, and around 1 in 1,000 of those are adaptive divers.
I was paralyzed at 50 by a surgery that went wrong. Rather than hold grudges and to be bitter, I decided I was going to rise above that. Every day is a challenge, but for the most part, I've done it. I've always been an adventurer. If there's something that I can do adaptively, I want to do it.
I wasn't always an adaptive diver. I had a fall and I broke my back at T7. Very life-changing experience since I was such an active person, and scuba diving was my #1 favorite thing to do. If you're tired of the top world, come to the sea with us. It's a totally different experience.
I'm an adaptive diver and I have ALS. I joined the Navy right out of high school. I was the only girl in my class, which is kind of how it was for me throughout my Navy career. There weren't a lot of gals. I used to regard myself as kind of fierce, living life boldly. I identified as a scuba diver. That's who I was. So when the disease hit, it was going to take away my identity, because who am I? I'm a diver, and I'm bold, fierce.
Nobody really knows what it is. It's sort of like MS. It's a degenerative disease, which just means I'm getting worse and worse and worse. When I'm underwater, I can escape gravity. I can get out of my chair. I'm totally free. I don't have to think about the day-to-day annoyances that I have to deal with. It's just so calming.
I'm a diver and I have a traumatic brain injury because I was in a horrible accident. I was hit by a car. So I love scuba diving because you see amazing things underwater and you meet new people and you do amazing things that maybe other people don't think you can do because you are disabled.
Went to work one day as a case manager at a federal prison. Had a stroke on the job. I'm like, what's a stroke? I couldn't remember how to spell it. I didn't know anything. If you look on the MRI or CAT scan, you'll see where the blood is damaged. The right side is just black, so it's dead. So I joke around and say I have half a brain. I've been doing this since 2009, and I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying to strive forward to be the best person I can be, since I have a second chance, and also try to inspire other people not to give up and to realize that just because you have a disability, you still can have a life.
Embracing the adventure, rising above circumstances, and enjoying the experience of doing amazing things. These divers were proving that just because there's a perceived limitation or a disability, you can still have a fulfilled life. I watched as they enjoyed the underwater world, and I was inspired as they put their trust in their team. These adaptive divers were living life to the fullest, and I was motivated to do the same. As the day came to a close, I found myself looking forward to what we would all discover tomorrow. Day 2 started out pretty rough for me. I was planning on dealing with my grief after the trip, but I heard the song playing, and the lyrics said, "I wish I could fix you. I lost it."
Sometimes it just hurts really bad. Sometimes I just cry. So I was having one of those emotional days today. I couldn't fix Tyler. There's nothing I could do. I tried really hard. I tried to love him through everything. I couldn't fix him. It wasn't my job to fix him. Everything. We worked so hard. We tried so hard. It just really hurts. I feel it.
Addiction is a powerful force. Ultimately, it has to be their decision to change. We can't do it for them. I wiped the tears from my eyes and I headed out to film these amazing people. I still hadn't told anyone about my personal life. No one knew what I was going through because this trip wasn't supposed to be about me. It was supposed to be about them. And I needed to stay focused. I could see the excitement building and everyone was in good spirits. We were all getting to know each other better and the total immersion training was in full effect. It felt like family and I was glad to be here. It was nice to see people helping each other.
Today's our first morning boat dive day. The exciting thing about this is we have an hour-long boat ride all the way out to Palancar Reef, which is some of the nicest reefs in Cozumel. On the way out, what we do is training. On a total immersion training trip, you not only have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with individuals with disabilities, but on the boat rides, you really get to know them. Also, anyone who's doing training gets a chance to learn about full face masks, try on wetsuits, dress each other as simulated quadriplegics. So it's a great training day, and it'll be warmer today because the sun's out.
I was on the Paradise Diver today and Scott was on the Aries. We were heading out for another adventure. Peggy told me a great story about her transformation.
10 years ago, I met Jim Elliott where I was rehabbing, and he did a presentation. It was fabulous, but I looked at him and I'm like, I'll never be able to do that. I mean, I just really didn't think that was in my power to do that. And here I am, 10 years later, going on a dive.
Today's day 2, we're on the Paradise. They're going to be doing some training while we're driving out to the site, 'cause it's about an hour, and they're going to be doing wetsuit donning and wetsuit undonning.
So Will's going to be the quadriplegic, and so I want you guys to get him dressed. My name's Mark Whiteley. I'm an adaptive scuba instructor. Hoping by the end of this week I will be an instructor trainer. I actually have grown up around the disabled disability community. I had a son with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I was his primary caregiver from birth till when he passed away. Once I found out about this and the fact that we can take people with disabilities and get them in a scuba experience or even get them certified, let them have experiences that they never thought existed. We'll do the training on the way out there, we'll do training on a surface interval. We have to dress somebody in a wetsuit who's pretending to be a quadriplegic, so that person gets the experience of what it's like to be dressed by somebody. You know, we have to be careful that that we're holding toes, holding fingers, nothing's getting bent over on a paraplegic or a quadriplegic person. It's all part of that empathy of, oh wow, this is what it's like to have somebody get you suited up and get you ready.
It was fascinating to watch these dive buddies practice on each other. I loved how they call it empathy training, being able to understand what an adaptive diver feels. As we got closer to the dive site, they got together in their groups.
Once we're on the boat, we get together as a team. Every adaptive diver is different. Even if they have the same disability, they are going to be different people. Our adaptive diver has this profile slate that they can use that has all the information on it that we need to allow our adaptive diver to have like the best dive they can possibly have. And so we want to make sure that we're going to conduct this dive so that they can enjoy themselves and see the things they want to see and have a good time.
Valerie was on my boat today, and I asked her how things were going.
I'm going to work with my adaptive diver in the water today. Yesterday I got a little taste with it. We got to get our hands on things, practice some scenarios, and we'll do some additional simulations today.
I've always enjoyed the adventure of exploring the underwater world. But Jim explained that there are so many health benefits.
There's physiological benefits. So if I'm in a wheelchair all day long, I'm a slave to gravity. But when we get individuals in the water and they can stand up, they elongate their body, and it helps with circulation, it helps with musculature, it helps with range of motion and things that we do in a therapy session. But you get to do it in zero gravity, and you can move around them and get them to move in ways that they just absolutely cannot move on land.
The primary goal is to get them independent in the water. Yes, they may need help getting down, they may need help getting buoyancy right, but you let them do absolutely as much as they can do or they want to do. So you want to strive to get them to where it's hands off. You're just there to help if they're needed.
Out in the ocean, you have this vast freedom. It's a little bit like flying. The freedom of just moving, and there's a certain zen about it. I love diving, and I'm so glad to be able to help divers that they didn't even think they could do this, and now they are, and believe me, we can't get them out of the water. A lot of people put limits on themselves. In the beginning, they're like, there's no way I can do that. I can't do that. And we're like, why not? You know, it's the why not. And well, try it. And they try it and they're able to do it. And now they're not that person in the wheelchair anymore. They are divers.
When you get to 3 atmospheres underwater, 66 feet, there's an extra output of serotonin in the human body. Doctors from Johns Hopkins discovered that when they were diving with one of the teams we trained down in Cayman Islands, and they had 12 veterans with spinal cord injuries and PTSD. And in that pilot study for that week, they found that 80% of the symptoms were alleviated while they were diving and during the course of the week. So maybe they don't need the meds that they would normally need for their PTSD symptoms.
A lot of these people who are in wheelchairs, they suffer from a lot of chronic pain. They're on tons of prescribed medications. And so for them, they can go diving and be pain-free for up to 2 weeks at a time from just scuba diving. When you go underwater, It's really calming and it's quiet. Because the world is so chaotic and it's so loud all the time. But you can go scuba diving and you can escape that. You know, you could go down there and really have like a meditative state and just finally let go of all the chaotic thoughts that you have.
You're weightless. You're looking at fish. You're in an environment that you're not supposed to be in, but we're down there with equipment. We make it happen. It's almost like going to the moon. Now we're in a whole new environment, enjoying ourselves. I do like being in the water. It gives you at least an hour break from the cell phones, the pagers, the text messages, the meetings, all the mundane things that you trudge through in your everyday life. They're gone. You can forget about them for the hour that's ahead of you. Float freely, be with your friends, and enjoy life for an hour. Get rid of those pesky life tasks.
For me, it calms and soothes me. Diving, I have never had to be on high blood pressure medicine again. So it is my happy place. And then the self-confidence. You take a brand new diver, they start believing in themselves more, they challenge themselves more. We take little things we learn in the water and we can use it in the workplaces and cut down some of our anxieties.
Many adaptive divers can move their bodies into positions that they can't on land. They're able to move more freely in the water. Imagine you're sitting in a wheelchair for hours upon hours. The force of gravity is oftentimes not so comfortable on your sacral area. So when you're underwater, that doesn't happen. You get this relief, you're able to move. You come up from a dive and you're just happy. Whether this extra release of serotonin is actually happening or not, it doesn't matter because everybody just feels good. What that does to somebody in the future is like, I can do this, I can do anything, and challenge myself more outside of just scuba diving because I was successful in this.
I know when I first got in the water and took my first breaths on scuba, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I feel so relaxed. I feel in control. It gave me like this huge emotion boost. It was awesome.
Scuba diving is pure freedom. Freedom from the racing mind, freedom from thought. You connect with your breath, breath is life, and you really focus in when your life depends upon it. Calm, mindful, present. As I watched these divers, I was aware of the transformational effect that the water had on everyone. I watched as Valerie worked with Peggy, calm, watchful. They both looked so comfortable, enjoying the moment. I would never have guessed that Valerie had been nervous. All I saw was confidence. And that's the power of the calm, the peaceful presence of the water. I was beginning to see the bigger reason why I was here. It was to be reminded of how important it is to trust, and then to surrender to the flow of life. That's when you allow yourself to experience true freedom. Trust is the freedom from fear, and that's what clears your mind. All of the sadness from the loss of my son and the transition in my relationship was relaxed. I was present, right here, right now, in this present moment. Because that's really the only moment we have, the moment of now. And I felt freedom.
That dive was probably one of the best dives I've ever done. I was so perfect that I was able to fold my arms and just drift and look around. All in all, it was one of the best.
Big change with me, I think overall with our whole team from the previous day. She complimented us immediately, so that gave us some reassurance. Yesterday I was white knuckles, holding her tank, not sure, as it was the first time I had driven a diver. Today I was much more relaxed. Instead of grabbing with intensity the tank and trying to force it around, I had a light touch on it, and I was able to just make small adjustments. I think it worked out really well.
My dive team tried to feed me to the sharks. One of them pushed, they were in a little cave. There's actually two of them in there, and they're big. Their heads were like this big. Yeah, one of them pushed me in there, and the other one pushed me in there. And then Rachel, I think she was trying to just take me down in there.
Chris was able to do 2 dives. Barb was able to do 2 dives. And Kyle did 1 dive. He had a little bit of problem equalizing on the first dive, but otherwise the second one, it was a home run. So another good dive day. We brought them all back in one piece, so it's good.
Jim loves to let go of me. He'll do anything to get away from me. No, really, he had me balanced, trimmed out absolutely perfect, and he loves to help me get as independent as possible. So after he's got me perfectly neutrally buoyant, that makes it really simple.
You asked me how I like my dive. Just the fact that I got to dive. That was my favorite part, yeah.
I didn't go on the first dive because my ears were hurting. The second dive was fun. I went on the second dive and went about, I think it was 36 feet. I didn't see much. It was just, I like some of the plants and a lot of the fishes.
Tomorrow's day 3. We're going to mix it up a little bit, change people on boats, change the buddies that are working with the different divers. Divers are moving, buddies are moving, instructors are moving. This is going to challenge what they've already learned. It's going to give them an opportunity to learn more. They're going to get perspectives and input from trainers and instructors that they have not gone diving with before. By Wednesday or Thursday, we might have some tears. People tend to be overwhelmed and might break down, but up to this point, everyone's been doing great. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
I tossed and I turned all night. I kept thinking, why am I here filming these adaptive divers? What's the story? And that's when it happened. You know that liminal space just before you fully wake up and you can't tell if you're dreaming or you're awake? Well, that's where I was, and I got a message. I know it sounds weird, but it was as if my son Tyler was speaking to me. The story is about you, Dad. It's about you learning to adapt. That's what you came here to do. Then it was gone. Was it a dream? Was it a message from the other side? I don't know, but it certainly was a blast of inspiration. I quickly got up and I headed out to record my thoughts. The universe was conspiring on my behalf, and I was beginning to see the bigger picture of why I was here.
You know, there's no words to express how you feel after you lose a loved one. But I'm gonna keep on just going, because what other choice do we have? This morning I was just thinking about my circumstances, and I was actually inspired by the adaptive divers, and I realized I have to adapt to deal with the loss of a son. And these divers have to adapt to deal with the loss of something. There's a level of challenge. Is it mobility? Is it mental faculties? What is it? They have to deal with it. And so we all have adaptations that we're going to have to go through. So we're all adaptive divers in some respects. And when we're in the water, we're just divers. We've all got stuff we have to adapt to. Bankruptcy, relationships, divorce, finance, career, death in the family, disease. There's tons of stuff we all have to deal with. So this is part of the human journey.
Everyone was really starting to bond. We'd been diving together, sharing meals together, and enjoying drinks together in the hot tub at night. There was a real sense of family, a sense of community. You really get that when you're watching out for each other. You're my dive buddy, and I'm yours. I got your back. And that's what diving does to people. Our lives depend on each other, and it's especially evident for these adaptive divers. They place their trust in their dive buddies because their life absolutely does depend upon them. They have to trust their community. Being transferred to the boat safely, being heard during the dive briefing, getting in the water safely, and then trusting that they'll come back. And that's why we bond, because we're a tribe. We are divers.
When we see someone who's disabled, and with speech it's even worse, they tend to maybe not think the same of them, a little bit less. It's almost like they kind of forget I'm a human sometimes, you know. But with this team, they weren't like that. They were talking to me one-on-one, and they would tease me, which was awesome. You know, making fun of me. Yes, please, I'm one of you, dive buddies, you know. And so it was not only this experience of diving, but also the camaraderie and belonging.
One of the first questions that she asked her doctor was, will she still be able to dive? And thankfully, the answer was yes. As we make our way through this disease together, it's something that we're always going to have. We have a whole amazing group of people here to make sure that she is getting the best experience that she can possibly have. You know, I kind of take a step back at that point, and I can kind of disengage from the kind of caregiver role and just be her daughter.
When I'm down there, I no longer am worried about hurting myself, falling, or all that clumsiness, and I'm free. I'm flying, you know, there's nothing to pull me down, and I can breathe in and out to just where I'm in the water column. I am in control of that, and it just feels so good. It is just unadulterated joy that I feel in that moment.
One of my favorite things about scuba diving is seeing turtles. They glide through the water so majestic, so free. It was incredible to see them swim with the adaptive divers. Linda had seen one. Barb had seen one. And now Tracy was getting her chance for an up-close encounter with one of nature's gentle giants.
I couldn't believe it. It was this huge turtle. It just started descending straight down directly in front of me, like I could have reached out and hugged him. It was amazing.
The biggest turtle I've ever seen in my life came to us during our safety stop, and I ran out of air. But luckily we have a lot of great divers around us, and everybody helps everybody, and we got situated. We had like 1 minute left of our safety stop anyway to surface, but yeah.
Running out of air is definitely not a common occurrence, and Amy knew that. She was so focused on her diver that she just rolled with it, because she knew she was part of a community and any one of us had her back. She was clear and calm because she felt safe.
No matter where we were all at before we got here, whether it be sad or whatever's going on in life, we all come together here and we all become friends and we work together and we help each other out. And it's just such a beautiful thing to be a part of. If more people in the world were like this, everybody would be much more happier.
For people who haven't dove before, you can make the comparison to like a sports team. It's a camaraderie, and everybody comes together. We're all just one group of people diving, and the experiences that we all have together and that we share is really, really special. Several participants said that when they're underwater, they don't feel like they have a disability. They feel equal, and they feel like they are just a scuba diver, not a person in a wheelchair. You know, maybe we have to give the adaptive diver a few extra kicks to go get there to be able to see that cool creature. But at the end of the day, we're just helping a buddy and helping a friend out to enjoy themselves while they're diving. It's a really, really special bond and time.
You get this amazing community. You get this trust with others. And beyond those like social connections that you get, there's so many more just benefits physically, emotionally, that can really contribute to boosting your overall level of health.
One of the things I love is the connection that happens with everybody. Nobody's on their own, hanging out by themselves. We're not talking about, oh, here's this group of adaptive divers and this group of standard divers or buddies or what have you. Everybody is a family. They all gather together. They all share together.
Everyone looks at each other for who they are and not the disability they have. And it's really great to be welcomed into that group of people with disabilities and for them to share things with us that normally they wouldn't share because of their comfort with everyone on the trip.
It's amazing when you can take someone from a wheelchair to put them into a water environment, get them neutrally buoyant, and they don't have a handicap anymore. They can maneuver in the water as easily as anybody else can. Gravity doesn't exist anymore. You can take them down to a sandy spot in the ocean and they can actually walk for maybe the first time in tens of years.
Scott had captured Barb walking in the sand. It was incredible footage. I saw divers and I saw a community. That's what we long for in life. When I left my marriage, I lost my identity as a husband. I tried for years to help my son, but when he died, I felt like I lost my purpose. And now I felt lonely without community. Now, I know these are all stories and they're not necessarily true, but sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between what's true and what you feel. And sometimes I feel sad and scared and alone. But here I was this week with a bunch of people, and we were becoming a family. I knew that if I told them about my son and shared with them my heartache, they'd support me. But the timing wasn't right. I had to get through the week. Here I thought that I was going to be creating a documentary about adaptive divers, but there was a bigger plan for me. A healing through this newfound community. Later on that night, we were all hanging out, feeling festive, and we were together. Give me a wave, yeah.
Wait, do the wave. Wait, I'll start it. Ready?
Okay, ready?
Ready?
Oh, wait, hang on.
And back around.
Send it back, send it back.
Another day of diving was beginning, along with another chance to live life fully. All week long I'd been filming the adaptive divers, and now I was beginning to see the bigger meaning that we are all adapting to life. Physically, emotionally, relationships, career, death, disease, divorce. These are all things that happen in life, and we have to learn to adapt, overcome, or get through.
During the course of one of these trips, the exciting thing for me is to see individuals gain confidence and that self-esteem. And what's even cooler is the ripple effect, where individuals on their team or individuals that they get to know during the trip, and it inspires them. And all of a sudden they're saying, wow, this is, if Chris can dive, this isn't so bad in my life, I can take on these other challenges. And that's really the whole idea, is to inspire people around the adaptive diver while they're watching the adaptive diver build that confidence, that independence, and that self-esteem.
Our buddies talk all the time about how inspired they get by working with our adaptive divers. And so someone who's a buddy who might be going through a different type of struggle, they get to focus on the other struggle I'm dealing with. Maybe that is diffused a little bit. Doesn't take away that it's still a struggle, but they can then process and say, if they can do that, I can get through this.
My adaptation and my disability, it's a physical one, so it presents itself obviously to people around me. I sit in a wheelchair so people can see that I have some kind of a physical limitation. That being said, we all have some type of disability, I would argue, whether it be one that presents itself physically like me, or perhaps you've lost a near and dear loved one No matter what level of challenge you may have, not just physical or mental or emotional limitations you have, they'll just help you become a better person that you thought you could never be, help you become the best you could ever imagine.
In life, everybody has to adapt at one point or another, whether it's physical, whether it's your health, whether it's your mind. You don't come out of here unscathed. And if you pay attention, if you listen to directions, almost anything's possible with a little adaptation.
Everyone has something they have to overcome in their lives. I know I certainly have. I know that 12 years ago, if you had asked me certain things about my life, I would have never thought I would have gone the next day. When you see somebody, you have to look deeper than just their face and their body. You have to remember that everybody has something going on. It's not just always physical.
When you really step back and look at it from the outside, I think that's everyday life for everything in life. It's if you don't adapt and overcome whatever's going on, you're never going to move forward and figure out the next thing, because things are just going to keep coming.
I was diagnosed with a really rare cancer, and you never know, right, what's going to happen and what's around the corner for you. So now I have a different kind of outlook. I'm going to go on every trip I can, everything I can possibly do, live life to the fullest. And then to be here with like Tracy and Barb and Chris and to see their struggle and how all of them have this gusto and this, they're so excited to be here. They're living life to the fullest that they can. I mean, they have challenges every day. And so sometimes I get up, I don't want to do my exercises. I don't want to eat this diet today. And you know what? You're going to do it. They do it every day. I can do it too.
The loss of a loved one, my husband, 5 years ago, you have to adapt. You have to keep going. And of course, there's stages that you have to go through, from sadness and going through being angry. You have to choose what to do. At first, when you see them, it's kind of like, oh my God, and I think I have problems. No, but now I don't feel sorry. I admire them. Everybody, all of us, have some kind of like to have to be adaptive, to life. Every one of us.
My late husband fell down a flight of stairs. Unfortunately, he passed away. I feel like I'm adaptive diving because, yes, everybody has something. I mean, it might not show right there, but everybody has something, and the people here make you feel special and enjoying life. My late husband used to always say, "This ain't practice, this is it."
We all have our own disabilities in somehow. Maybe we cannot be as open-minded as other people. Our heart is closed to any other sensations or feelings about everybody. Blue eyes, brown, white, red. You can narrow your mind about it, or you can open about it. And my goal is to be the best hotel that can give you experience, a feeling of home, if you have a disability or not.
I was diagnosed with cancer. It's a highly treatable cancer, but a tough treatment to go through. Watching the adaptive divers overcome what they have, overcome their struggles, and live day to day with those, and yet be so joyous here on this trip. They're so happy and so fun. It will help me as I go back and return to the real world and my continued treatment. Each time I have a scan and the worry of the cancer coming back, I know that I'll be able to overcome what's ahead of me. If they can do it, I know that I will be able to do it.
All week long, I'd been hearing people talk about adapting. Adaptive divers, adaptive dive buddies, adapt and overcome, adapt. And that's when I realized that humans have been doing this since the dawn of time. adapting to their environment. This week I realized that all of us are adapting to dive, and every human is adapting to function and live in this world. Maybe you have a physical limitation. Maybe you have a health struggle. Or maybe you have a heartache and you're not sure how you can continue through life. But I know that if you don't give up, and I know that if you ask for help, you can find a buddy that can help you live life to the fullest. The slogan on the back of the shirt says, "Imagine the possibilities." So I asked people, what's that mean to you?
Life doesn't have to stop. And so you need to imagine those possibilities. And there is a lot out there for spinal cord people. You're missing out if you don't go out and try it.
What I always like the most is when I can get to the place where people do not say, "Oh, Barb, she has a disability," but come to the place, "Look at Barb, she's a scuba diver," or "Look at Barb, and she can do all these things." Yeah, she's got a disability, but look at Barb. Look at what she's doing.
Underwater, we're all just humans. We're all just individuals. I don't need a wheelchair underwater. In fact, the only way you can notice me from the other divers is that I happen to not have fins. And I really appreciate that because it's easier to pick me out in the photos and the videos.
Imagine the possibilities of you being able to dive anywhere in the world. And yes, I didn't think I was going to be able to dive. Now I dive. I'm almost as good a diver as I used to be. Just a little bit shy. It depends on who my buddy is.
I don't know how to put it into words. It's the most awesome feeling just to feel so free and just floating, and it feels like you're walking in the air, and I can walk with no pain. But in the water, I feel like I could do anything. I'm whole again.
Putting our face in the water and breathing for the first time, if you've never done it before, it's an epiphany. Because your brain is going, what are you doing? You're breathing underwater? When that realization hits you finally and you go, wow, this is cool. I can breathe underwater. Then you kind of go to the next step. Oh my God, I'm standing up. I'm breathing underwater and I'm standing up. That is the coolest thing for people to watch. Man, you come to a trip and you see this happening live, unfolding before you. It inspires and it changes people. And it changes people so that they can then go on and take other challenges in their life that they might not take on. We like to encourage people to imagine the possibilities in their life. Always keep an open mind, and who knows where you're gonna go, what you're gonna do, what star you're gonna reach for.
The Imagine the Possibilities slogan, on its face, it's you can dive, everyone can dive. And for a lot of people who didn't think they could, that is true. It's more than that for me. On the street, in my wheelchair with my wetsuit, I feel fierce. I feel empowered. I feel strong. I feel that everything is a little bit more attainable.
Being human means feeling our emotions, and this week I felt the entire range from despair to joy. All of these divers were clearly living life and not letting circumstances keep them down. I'd realized how important it is to trust, and that allows you to feel the sense of freedom, and then you can clear your mind. And when you have a clear mind, you can see that you're not alone and you belong to a community, the community of humans. And because you're human, you're going to constantly be adapting. And when you adapt and get through it, then you're no longer a victim, you're a victor. And that's why I was here this week. But I wasn't done yet. I still had one more thing to do. It was time for the final party at the end of the week. We gathered for a sunset dinner on the beach. Some folks took the boat. Others used wheelchairs to arrive. But we all had one thing in common. We were divers, and divers look out for each other. We talked and laughed, and soon we circled up, and it was time to share. One by one, each person had an opportunity to say what this week had meant to them. As I listened, it became clear that I needed to be vulnerable and allow my new friends to support me as a member of the family. So far, I'd kept my emotions to myself. I put on a smile and I concealed my pain. But if you want to heal it, you have to reveal it. You have to let yourself be seen. All week long, I wanted the focus to be on them, but tonight I knew that I'd have the opportunity to share the loss of my son and be open to just how important this week had been and how inspired I was to live my life to the fullest. After everyone went, it was my turn. What was I gonna say? How could I explain my journey with my son in just a few short moments and let them all know how important they were to me? So I just started talking. I have 3 children. I have a 27, a 26, and a 23-year-old. My 27-year-old has been struggling with opiate addiction for 10 years. He's been in a rehab facility for the past 3 months. He had gotten clean, and he had gotten a position with this company. Finally, we're like, maybe he's got some purpose. A few nights before Thanksgiving, he found some opiates. He came over to our house. We had Thanksgiving dinner with him. He was warm and well fed. He was loved. And on Thanksgiving night, he overdosed himself and he'd passed away. And I've been preparing a funeral the whole week while I'm here, knowing how much love there is in this place. And I'm inspired by every single one of you, because I'm going to have to be an adaptive diver from now on. Because every time I put my head in that water, I'm going to think of my son. I gave him all the love I could give him. It was his choice. I don't know what else I could have done. And this hard, heavy heart that I've dealt with has been uplifted by watching Chris Block get into the water, by watching Barb make her way across the area, by watching Peggy and Tracy and Linda. We all have this human journey we're on. We all have loss. We all have to adapt and overcome. We all have heavy hearts. And the last thing I wanted to do was, have to focus on that, because I, quite frankly, have enjoyed being able to focus on you guys, being able to focus on Diveheart. So this is a family. I now feel like I'm part of the family, and I love you all. And thank you for your human emotion. Thank you for your human connection. And I love the Diveheart organization. Thank you. The story wasn't about diving after all. It was about adapting. You see, everyone is struggling, and you're not alone. Maybe you don't have the finances you want. Maybe you don't have the relationship you want. Maybe you're struggling with your health. But everyone everywhere is going through something. So I offer you the suggestion. Do something for someone else. Get out of your head, go into your heart, and be of service, and the answers will come to you. But you have to trust, and you have to surrender to the flow of life, and you have to adapt. And you'll get through it. And then choose to live your life to the fullest, because we're all adapting to dive.
I can't seem to feel the love. There'll always be a problem, but we got solutions. And if you want to win, add your contribution. So we are the people like the Constitution. So now is the time for your resolution. You want to be free? Then sing with me. Yeah. You want to be free? Then take that leap. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you striving, diver. I see you climbing, diver. I see you diving. Take a dive, take a dive, take a